So my wife and I were just recently married in May. So newlyweds, for those of you that are dating, men, we need to commit. You need to commit your lives to your partner, and if you feel it is, do it. It's amazing. But my wife and I were learning to process things together. And yesterday, when we were driving up here, it was a good time to start processing things. And I said to her, babe, we're busy. And I said to her, we're busy. And she's like, well, what do you mean by that? And I said, babe, do you remember what we promised each other a few weeks ago? And she goes, yeah, I do. And we promised each other that we would start our day and finish our day with him. And it had been a week and we hadn't done it. So what's in that? See, busy is being under Satan's yoke. It's the easiest way to describe it. And for my wife and I, we were caught up again. As you grow in your faith more, you realize that once again, we were caught up in the busyness of life. And so for us, if you just want to flick to the next slide, the busyness of life for us is we've just started a new business. We're called Worldwide Speaking. We've packaged all my life experiences. And the moral of the story is we're drawing upon real life experience to equip, inspire and influence. We have school programs, we have keynote speaking, we have athlete development for our community, and our goal and vision is to break down the wall between us and the world. One brick at a time, they can see us a little bit more, and hopefully they ask us what's different about them. And so if you're interested, you can jump on our website and have a look, and if you want to know more, have a coffee, catch up, got connections, any of that stuff, we're available. So if you just flick to the next slide. Believe it or not, the platform is a privilege. It's not something to be taken for granted. So much so that James 1 actually says that I have to give an account for every word that I speak to you guys. So either what I'm saying is true or I'm completely missing the mark. If you think about it, there is 45,000 different denominations. So that means that I didn't like, if someone was following me in a church, they didn't fully like my doctrine, theology, and they've gone off and planted something else. So much so that that's actually happened 45,000 times. And so if you think about it, church does so well at teaching us all these things, and most of the time we fail to miss the message of the gospel. See, we as Christians more than ever need to understand our full created expression, the why behind our lives, and our reason for being, which all sums up the message of the gospel. We all need to continue to experience his love, his forgiveness, and redemptive power. Did you know that you have as much access to him as you desire? That he's given each one of us a free choice to access into as much as we desire. That he can literally take your life from going in that direction and put you completely on a brand new path. He's powerful. That is his love. And we are going to struggle massively as the body of Christ if we don't start reflecting, representing something so much deeper, stronger, more powerful than what this world has to offer. Unfortunately, this world is chewing up Christians like no tomorrow. As quick as a new believer starts the journey of faith, good intentions, Christ is real, yes, the world sucks them up and takes them back in. And for Christians who have been following a while, they give up too easy when the pressures of life come. A church that we're currently going to at the moment have literally lost 600 members to COVID. So what's in that? You see, as Christians, church attendance does not equal Christianity. The world is appealing, it's catchy, but you're not fulfilled. Because what you see and what you allow into your life is what you are. The world leaves us more unfulfilled, unsatisfied, and more discontent than ever before. A fun fact for you. We as a nation spend $13.4 billion a year on personal care. That is dental, skin, the way we look, and appearance. Hair, nails, eyelashes, tan. We spend $13.4 billion on that stuff. So if we are willing to spend so much money on our appearance, our personal care, etc., then surely we as a nation will be willing to give our lives to His love. You see, His love is perfect. It's free. You don't have to pay for it. The world is empty. It does not quench the thirst within and always leaves you more empty than before. It is a never-ending cycle of always wanting more, needing more, and seeking more. But the void within continues. We as believers cannot walk close to the Lord, and still be involved in what this world has to offer. We have to see our lives turned away from the world and turned into something more. He is not a magic wand. He is not a genie in a bottle. He's not a God you point to when you score a try. He is so much more than that. The thirst and the emptiness within has to be quenched with something so much more than what this world has to offer. Why do you think Paul said? Paul had everything, and Jesus met him. What I once considered valuable is now garbage. It's done. Compared to the infinite value of knowing Him. Unfortunately, Christians more often than not tend to miss the mark. We constantly let something matter more than what matters most. Failing to experience the true transforming power of Jesus Christ. That He can literally take your life and do something with it that this world will never give. So let's be clear. We are not put on this planet to just survive and make it. To win at all costs, to serve, to tithe, to be in a church. To make sure our bank accounts are full, that we have the right and best job, to solely focus on our career. That our focus goes more on a relationship with someone else than the ultimate relationship. That we look the part. Our reason for being and living here is so much more than that. So my goal tonight is to inspire, deepen your relationship with Him, and to take you from a place of knowing about God to actually knowing Him. I recently read this book of John Bevere, and he shares his story. He shares his story about him at a conference, and he was by the pool preparing for his sermon. And this lady comes over to him and she says, "You're John Bevere." He's like, "Yeah," and he starts talking. He was obviously in his zone trying to prep for his message. And anyway, she goes, "Can I have a moment with you? Can I just share something with you?" And she starts sharing this language to him that he was struggling to understand. All this stuff God was doing and who God was and this kind of stuff. And he actually says it in his book. He recommends not to do this, but he felt to do this. So he stopped her in her tracks and he said to her, he said, "See that guy over there?" And she's like, "Yeah." He used to be CEO of this certain company. He's actually got 3 kids, been through divorce 3 times. He used to be a follower of Jesus Christ. And he starts sharing this story about breaking down each of the kids' life. And the story was so believable that it was so unbelievable. And she's looked at him and she said, "Are you a CIA agent?" And he said, "No." He goes, "Well, how do you know that about him?" And he goes, "I don't." And she looks at him puzzled. And he said to her this question that got him in trouble with her. He said, "I think I know him." You see, we can go through our lives thinking we actually know God and get so caught up in this Christianese language that is killing us and our power as the body of Christ. It robs us of our true created expression, our true created value, and our whole reason for being on this planet. So for my story, I used to be that guy. I used to have this Christianese language that seems right to a man, Proverbs says, but ends in death. And I don't mean to come on too strong today, and I'm actually trying to contain it a little bit. I went through a season of my life where I was quite legalistic, but God's grace has taken me on a journey of being able to receive His revelation, because my heart is teachable, and you need to be teachable as well. And I'm not saying this is you. You've got to understand that. Just don't ever let it be you. So my life, from 5 years old, my parents had an outboard marine dealership. We can just switch to the next slide. My parents had an outboard marine dealership, and my dad put me in swimming lessons. And for me, in swimming, I had such this natural gift and ability for the water. So much so that I progressed so quickly through the squads, I'd never seen it before. And so when I was 10 years old, I didn't know at the time, because kids are very poor interpreters of information. Parents' jobs, mentors, teachers, the church, us, it's our job as those roles to help kids understand what they are. So my dad grew up in quite a dysfunctional household, so he tried to give me something that he never had. So when I was 10 years old, my dad was living his life out through me. It felt good at the time, but it felt good so much so I actually got a bronze medal at national titles when I was 10. When I was in year 7 and going into grade 8, they asked me in the yearbook, they said, "What do you want to be when you're older?" And all your friends, they put doctors and vets and all these visionary things that they want to be. And I literally put in my yearbook, in grade 7, you're barely 11, about 12, so quite young. And I said, I want to be the fastest man in the world. And I want to break Ian Thorpe's records. So everything in life starts off with a dream. Most people who are outrageously successful have a dream. And so for me, my dream was to be the fastest man in the world. So much so that when I was 13, I won 6 gold and 2 silver at the national titles, and also broke Ian Thorpe's Australian 200-metre freestyle record. Little did I know that this life that I was pursuing was empty. It was unfulfilling, always needing more. The following year, I won so much that I actually had to beat it again. I actually got 8 gold medals and 2 silver, and still to today, it's one of the most medals won in history. That was my life growing up, all in the newspapers, news crews, media team, and all that kind of stuff. And I actually trained with Grant Hackett. So I saw what it takes to be a champion. I didn't see the cost of it though. And so when I was about 17, 18, I started to experience life a little bit more and still maintain a swimming career. I was into drinking and partying and that kind of stuff. And that life took me down a dark road that actually ended up leading me to the Lord. But just jumping forward, when I came back to swimming, so I had 5 years out of the sport. And when I came back to swimming, I actually had a dream. And the Lord actually asked me to go back to the pool after having 5 years out. This was 8 years ago. And so when I came to the Lord, and He asked me to get into the water again. I was like, what do you mean, Lord? It's this thing that messed me up. You see, I didn't know the heart of God when I gave my life to the Lord. I was never really taught it. I had to figure it out for myself. I was in this Christianese language that hurts a lot when life hits you hard. And so for me, going into swimming as a Christian believer, news crews were about me, drug dude comes to the Lord and this kind of stuff, and all that stuff was my life. And I actually got 7th place at the Commonwealth Games trials with only being in the sport for 6 months. My talent was incredible. The following year was 2015 World Championships, and that's when my life started to become quite famous. Everything was about swimming. You get your own team. To put it in perspective, I was swimming 70 kilometres a week, so that's how much training I was doing for one moment every single year. Sorry if I'm trying to sell you the sporting dream. I will sell it to you. But my whole life was about what I did, and it wasn't about who I was. And so for me, the comeback journey was about fame, fortune, influence, and accolades of man. Whether you say that's not you or not, it was me. And so the problem is with high performance sport is a win never feels as good as a loss feels bad. Going into the Olympics, I was literally the fastest person going into the Olympics. I was number one in Australia pretty much every meet leading in. And so I was taught, God, your swimming career, and God this and God that, and people sewed into me a lot about swimming. It was a phenomenal time of my life. And so I've gone into the Olympic Games as the fastest qualifier, swimming really well. And when I went to the trials, I started to experience this thing called performance-based anxiety. What it's called is choking in sport. You see it a lot happen to our athletes. And so for me, I choked and I ended up still getting a 4th place at the trials, and then I made it onto the Olympics. And so for me, going to the Olympics I didn't realize the weight of it. And leading in, everything's about the Olympics and the media team and all that kind of stuff. And the media manager pulled me aside before the Olympics and he said to me, Dan, if you win a medal here, this is the happy ending. You see, the only person to ever decide the ending has to be him. See, it wasn't the media manager, but it felt good at the time. It was right. And so I was able to carry the flag for Australia at the flag raising ceremony. I was able to meet Michael Phelps in real time and see Usain Bolt and do all these cool things at the Olympics. But I didn't know at the Olympics that if you think about it, in the final, there's 8 of the fastest people in the world that all want the same thing, to win. And so my chaplain pulled me aside after the fact because I met him at the Olympics, and he said to me, at the Olympics, there's 9 funerals and 1 wedding. A lot of people's dreams die at the Olympic Games. And so for me, my Olympic dream was to win the Olympics. And so to put it into perspective, I was actually the reason why our team got 4th place. I was 2 seconds off my best, which isn't good in an Olympic final. And I only looked it up a couple of years ago when I was able to because it hurt. But I looked it up and we were only 0.6 off the silver. So that's a big weight to carry. When the news crews interviewed me, they didn't interview the team, they interviewed me, and they said to me, what happened? And see, this is when you find out what you truly believe. There's this quote that says, can the importance of the inward center ever be truly appreciated until we have experienced defeat, death, or humiliation? See, everything that I ever believed was challenged in this moment. And that's what's birthed this passion out of me to actually preach Christ. See, I thought I knew God a lot more than what he thought I did. He cared so much more about my understanding of him than what I actually did in my career. He took me down a journey I did not want to go to take me to a place I never want to leave. And so Matthew 6:22-23 says, the eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is healthy, focused, living in truth. So if your eye is healthy, your whole body is full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If the light is in you is darkness, how great that darkness is. So if what you're thinking, church, living, doing, isn't moving you forward in the Lord, then who can it be? You see, I was all about this swimming and this fortune and fame and all this kind of stuff, even as a believer, but yet it always left me more unfulfilled, unsatisfied, and deeply challenged within. So some questions to consider today is, do you actually know God? Or do you know about him? Do you act or look different to the world? Or do you still do the same as them? When you wake up in the morning, what excites you the most? Is it your career, your partner, your finance, your status? Or is it waking up to him? If Jesus was to show up right now, would he be impressed with you? What you're thinking about, what you're living, what you're doing. Would he be impressed with you? So being drawn into a deeper place of knowing him is crucial for every believer. The fire should never burn out, and we must grow in love first before we do and as we do anything. People must be able to tell you've been with him, that you begin to act like him, reflect him, and you are so impressed with him that nothing else satisfies. So, do you need to get back to basics? For me, one of the humblest things I ever had to do as a believer is to get back to the deep understanding of why I follow. But it was this very place that transformed my life and took me into a way deeper place than medals ever would. So the way that you interpret the cross will determine the quality of your life. You see, the old way was not working. We always had to enter through the high priest, and it was all about doing things for God. Jesus came in the flesh to fulfill what we couldn't do, to enable us to live our true created design. You see, living unloved, the easiest way to describe it, is like a bird without wings. It's like a motor with no oil in it. It just doesn't work well. And so God was so beautifully thought about us that he even revealed himself through the first 3 commandments. He said, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, of that house of slavery. So if he is something, that means if he brought you out of something, that means he is something. You shall have no other gods before me. So it is possible to put something else before him. He was already revealing that to us. You shall not make for yourself the carved image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them or serve them, for I am the Lord your God, am a jealous God. He's crazy about us, about you, about me. And you think about Genesis 1-3, which is the place we've all been restored back to. Is he created man in our image. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. He created man in our image, not sameness. In our image, and likeness, not sameness. His image of love. And this is where we became human beings, not human doings. We have access to walk with God every single moment of every single day as much as we like. You can't just switch him on and off. Or you can. In my final days of swimming, just before COVID hit was when I retired. He's not the dad who leaves your life. He's not the dad in the grandstands watching me swim. He was in the water with me. And God became so personal to me in my final days of swimming that when I would touch the wall, I would literally thank him before the lap time, because he would literally meet me that personally in the water. And I'd turn around and look at the lap time, and I was 7 seconds off my best. I felt so much more fulfilled and so much more satisfied than the Olympic dream will ever give me, than the world will ever give me. And no one ever knew that moment but me and him. And it was a personal moment. And I'm so thankful for swimming. God used swimming to free me from swimming, to bring me closer to him. So, do you see him as an object or a spirit? Someone you pray to or someone you pray with? Do you live rejected? Or do you live accepted? Is God the air that you breathe? or the coach on your shoulder. You see, the way that you determine the way that you see the cross will determine the quality of your life. And so for me, as a young person growing up and experienced all the things of the world, and even as a Christian believer, I needed something powerful to change me. I needed something powerful to sustain me. And I needed something to fulfill me. When I was 17 years old, if the keys could start playing, I was literally number one swimmer in Australia at 17 years old. This was 13 years ago now. And I started to experience this destructive lifestyle because I didn't want to do swimming anymore. So anything to take me away from it was a good thing. So drinking and that kind of stuff gave me some sense of relief. And when I was 18, I decided to get behind the wheel of the car one night. And I was living this destructive lifestyle. And I was drinking one night and I decided to get behind the wheel of the car with two of my best mates in the car. And we ended up getting in a high-speed police chase. The police, to put it in perspective, clocked us at 198 kilometres an hour in a 60 kilometre an hour zone. So to say I was living a destructive lifestyle was an understatement. Life was a joke to me. I didn't understand what life was. I had no sense of identity, no sense of purpose, and no sense of fulfillment. And so I ended up getting locked up. And when I came out of the lockup, the news crews were there. And they asked me what happened. And I didn't know how to deal with the shame, the guilt, and the embarrassment. And so I decided I'd start to live this life of crime and drugs and that kind of stuff. And I got addicted to marijuana. And before I knew it, I was in the drug world and I became addicted to ice. And ice was the only thing that gave me some sense of relief. And so when I became to the end of the road, I ended up becoming at the end of the road, and my parents literally were told, "We can't help your son." I was told I was too far gone, my mental health was not great, and I was locked in the mental health wards. I had very messed up, dysfunctional problems. And so my parents literally moved into a unit to move away from me, so I literally became homeless, living on the street. So you can understand the reason why I'm a bit passionate sometimes. And so what happened to me was I ended up getting recommended to this Christian rehabilitation center. And we rocked up at this building of a person of no hope, no future, didn't know who I was. And this big 6'6" bikie guy came out. I didn't know it at the time, but he had God squad on the back of his jersey. And he said to me, I start pouring my life out to him, and my dad's crying, and we're having this moment with him, you call it intervention. He didn't preach the gospel to me. He didn't share anything else of Jesus Christ to me. But he literally said to me, he said, "Dan, we've got a rehabilitation program that restores people's lives. I've been clean for 17 years. We can help you, bro." And so something within me changed. I went to this rehab program. And when I rocked up there was 166 rules all related to the Bible. They did Bible study morning and night. And it was a very full-on program, to say the least. But 1 month into the program was my final days. I had a court sentence hanging over my head, and I had 2.5 years jail sentence hanging over my head. And so you go to this rehab center, you're like, what's wrong with these people? Their lives are changing. There's something different about them. They're passionate. They were a lot worse than me, and their lives are turning around. What's different? And so they said to me before I went in, the brothers in the house, they said, "Can we pray for you, bro?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll take whatever I can get." Didn't feel anything, had nothing, didn't feel anything. I was like, "Yeah, I'll take whatever I can get." They laid hands on me and I went to court. And when I went to court, my lawyer pulled me aside and he said, "Dan, 2.5 years jail is a good sentence today." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, you're the one that's done it, right? There's consequences for your actions." And when I walked into court, I didn't know how to pray. I didn't know that I could have my own personal relationship with the God of the universe. I was never told that. And so I literally said to him, I said, Lord, if you're real, I want one more chance of my life. I promise I won't let you down. That's a big statement to keep to the God of the universe. So I've gone into the courtroom, especially when I'm addicted to drugs, and I've gone into the courtroom and the prosecutor's on the right, and he started reading out all this stuff that I've done. You've done this to this person, you've done that to that person. And as that was happening to me, the hair on my skin started to stand up. I started to have this outer body experience in a courtroom. And these tears started to stream out of my eyes. And I kid you not, it was the first time in my whole life that I've felt any remorse, sympathy, compassion, anything. I was so sorry for everything that I've done. I didn't know I could counter God outside of church. And so for me, the God of the universe met me in a courtroom when I was meant to go to jail. You see, the thing is with his love, people, he looked at me in the midst of my weakness, disappointment, poor decision making. And he never changed his mind about me. He never changed his mind about my value. He never changed his mind about what was possible for my life. He never changed his mind. When everyone had given up on me, he never did. And so for me, he hooked me in to his love. So long story short, the court case went on and I got an absolute serving by the judge, which I deserved. And he said 3 months jail for this, 4 months jail for that, 3 months jail for this. And believe it or not, people, he literally said, Dan, I'm going to suspend you today, Mr. Smith, and I never want to see you again. So he gave me a suspended sentence and let me off. Any drug addict, any person that's a free ticket to go back. And so I went back to rehab and started to learn more about God, still didn't give my life to him, had to understand more. Understanding and curiosity are beautiful things as a believer. You have to understand the reason why you follow. That's why I landed there. That's why I started there, because the way that you see the cross will determine the quality of your life. And so his love is crazy about you. He's intense about you. He's tense about no matter where you are on your walk. He let me feel loved. He gave me an internal sense of worth and value, where medals no longer decide my life. This world no longer decides my life. He decides my life. He gave me meaning and purpose away from what I did. He gave me one of the most beautiful things he's ever given me. His innocence. Washed clean. Blameless. Faultless. Spotless. That's how he sees me. That's how he sees you. And so following Jesus for any one of us today, no matter where we are on the journey, it's an invitation into an everlasting covenant where he does not leave. No matter where you've been, no matter what you've done, he does not leave. And so whether you've followed for years, you've never heard it like this before, or you feel like you've forgotten it, you can respond. It wasn't too late for me only 2.5 years ago when I was awakened to the whole revelation and my whole reason for being. I bowed before him and I said, Lord, I'll follow you forever. I'm done. I'm done with this world and what it has to offer. And so Christ came in me and fulfilled my inner being, so I'm no longer lacking. And so the moment we think we have it is the moment we lose it. Don't step too far ahead of the revelation of why you're on this planet. And so for me, just to wrap this up, a new believer friend to me said recently, he literally said this to me. He said, Dan, he's just experienced Christ. He said to me, Dan, if you were walking along the street with your wife and this dude comes up to you and puts a gun to your head And next minute, as he pulls the trigger, this random guy comes along the street, jumps in front, takes the bullet for you, and drops in front of you. You cry, you're like, why did he do that for me? I don't understand. Why did he do that for me? And so you go away, and the next minute you come back, and 3 days later you're walking along the shops with your wife, and your wife goes, that's the guy. See, that guy raised from the dead, he became back to life, and he died for us so we can have access to him. And so if Jesus took the bullet for you, he literally said this to me, wouldn't you want to know him? So whether you've missed the mark, people, it doesn't matter. Time is nothing to God. It's about heart. He removed the action and became heart.